So today we're going to crack open a letter that's just about 2,000 years old. It's short, it's direct, and man, it makes some incredibly bold claims about truth, compassion, and how you can have total certainty about life itself. Let's dive in and see what it has to say. Okay, right out of the gate, the author, a guy named John, makes something crystal clear. This is not a bunch of abstract ideas or secondhand stories. No, he's positioning himself as an eyewitness. He's basically saying, we heard this. We saw it with our own eyes. We literally touched it. This sets the stage for everything that follows, not as some philosophy, but as a first-hand report. So why even write this report? What's the point? Well, he tells us straight away. It's so his readers can be united with him and his friends, who are in turn united with God. And get this, he even says he's writing these things so their joy may be made complete. So this isn't some dry, heavy letter. It's all about creating community and real joy. All right, so community, joy, sounds great. But how do you actually get there? John kicks things off with a foundational truth, a non-negotiable standard for his entire argument, and it all boils down to the fundamental nature of God. This right here, this is the bedrock of his whole argument. God is light. Now, we're not talking about a light bulb, right? In this letter, light is this powerful metaphor for absolute truth and moral purity. You can think of it as perfect clarity and goodness. And that second part is just as important. In him, there is nothing dark. That is so absolute. No shadows, no murky gray areas, no falsehood, period. So if God is the starter of pure light, then according to John, you're either walking in that light or you're not. There's really no middle ground. And the contrast he paints is just stark. Walking in the light means you're united with others, you have clarity, but walking in the dark, John says your words and actions are false, and you basically have no idea where you're even going. The bottom line is pretty clear. Your actions reveal which path you're really on. Okay, so walking in the light sounds good as a concept, but what does that actually look like in the real world? How does a person live out a life of light when you're dealing with, actual people? And here's the answer. Just as he said, God is light, John makes another profound statement. God is love. He presents love not as some nice suggestion, but as the primary evidence of truly knowing God. It's the non-negotiable proof that you're connected to the light. Think of it this way. If light describes God's character, his truth and purity, then love is the action that flows from that character.
And here's what's so crucial about John's definition of love. It's not a warm, fuzzy feeling or a poetic idea. He defines it by an action, a sacrificial, selfless act. He points to the ultimate example and basically says, see that? That's our model. In this letter, love is all about giving, not getting.
And then bam, he brings this giant idea right down to our daily lives. Love isn't some abstract concept. It's a response. You see someone in need and you act. He draws this super sharp line between a love of empty words, what he calls love in word and tongue, and a love that's real, one that's shown in act and in good faith. Oof, this verse is pretty much the ultimate gut check of the entire letter. John just presents this simple logical test. He basically says, how can you claim to love a God you've never seen if you can't even manage to love the person right in front of you who you can see? He says that claim is just plain false. He's saying your vertical claim to love God is proven or disproven by your horizontal relationships with the people you see every single day. All right, let's connect the dots here. We have the standard, light, which is truth. We have the practice, love, which is action. So, where does all this lead? What's the ultimate promise that comes from living this way? And this brings us right to the heart of John's argument. Because look, it's one thing to talk about these ideas. It's another thing entirely to have real, personal confidence in them. John knows his readers are asking this exact question, and he wrote this letter to give them an answer. And his answer could not be more direct. He ties the promise of life directly and exclusively to a relationship with the Son. He presents it as a present tense reality. If you have the Son, you have the life. This isn't some future hope. It's a current possession, something you have right now. And that right there is the whole point. The entire letter was written to provide this exact assurance. John's goal isn't to give people a vague hope, it's to give them rock-solid certainty. He wants to move his readers from a place of I hope so to a place of I know so. So when you put it all together, these three themes, light, love, and life, they aren't separate ideas at all. They actually form this interconnected three-part test for what John would call authentic faith.
So let's just recap the flow of John's test. It starts with belief. Are you walking in the light, aligned with the truth? Then it moves to action. Does that belief produce real, compassionate love for others? And finally, it leads to assurance. Do you have a deep internal confidence in the life you've been given? For John, you just can't have one without the others. They're completely intertwined. And this leaves us with a pretty powerful question, doesn't it? John wrote this test of authenticity for a community 2,000 years ago. But what happens if we hold that same three-part mirror up to our world today? A mirror of absolute truth, selfless love, and deep certainty. What reflects back? What do we see in ourselves? And maybe more importantly, what would John say about the world we've built?